Hello everyone, welcome to PEP GP Australia, where we help GPs navigate the PEP Specialist Pathway. If you are planning to move to Australia through the PEP Pathway, you have probably wondered whether you can work in Melbourne or Sydney or Perth, or do you have to go to rural areas? Unfortunately, there isn't a simple yes or no answer. Many international GPs accept jobs without fully understanding the location rules. Later on, they discover that the position doesn't meet their pathway requirements. So, in this video, I'll explain three terms that every IMG GP must understand before accepting a job offer. These are Triple M, DPA, and the Moratorium. By the end of this video, you will know exactly how these rules affect where you can work and how to avoid making costly mistakes. So let's get started. One of the first questions most international GPs ask me is if they can work in metro cities or not. The answer depends on several factors: your RACGP comparability outcome, the DPA status of your practice, and the moratorium. All of them will influence your job decision. These terms can be confusing because they are often used interchangeably, even though they mean completely different things. So, before looking at GP jobs, let's understand each one of them individually. Let's begin with Triple M. It stands for Modified Monash Model. So, think of Triple M as Australia's way of describing how rural or remote our location is. So, every GP practice in Australia has a Triple M classification. The higher the Triple M number, the more rural that area. Here's a table to simplify this concept. So Triple M1 represents metropolitan cities like Melbourne or Sydney or Brisbane. Triple M2 includes large regional centers as well as areas around the metro cities. Triple M3 covers large rural towns. Triple M4 and Triple M5 are progressively smaller rural communities. And Triple M6 and Triple M7 represent remote or very remote locations. It's important to remember that Triple M only describes the location. It doesn't tell you whether international doctors are allowed to work there or not. So, for that, we need another classification. That brings us to DPA. DPA stands for Distribution Priority Area. Unlike Triple M, DPA has nothing to do with how rural a place is. Instead, it identifies areas where Australia needs more doctors. The Australian government uses DPA status to help distribute the medical workforce to areas with GP shortage. So, working in a DPA approved practice is essential for GPs because they need a Medicare provider number to start their practice in Australia. So, this number is only issued for DPA approved areas. So remember, Triple M tells you how rural the location is, and DPA tells you if IMGs can work there or not, which means areas that are facing shortage of GPs. So this is probably the biggest misunderstanding among international GPs. Many doctors assume that a metro city location can't be DPA. That is not true. Triple M and DPA are two completely different systems. So again, Triple M tells you how rural a location is, and DPA tells you whether that location currently has a shortage of doctors or not. For example, a metropolitan area can actually be DPA if there is a GP shortage there. On the other hand, some regional towns may not be DPA if they already have enough doctors. That's why you should always check both classifications before accepting a job. Now let's talk about another important concept, which is moratorium. The moratorium places restrictions on IMGs regarding where they can provide Medicare funded services, which are otherwise known as GP services. The main purpose is to encourage doctors to work in areas where there is a shortage of GPs. For doctors who are subject to the moratorium, this usually means you will be working in DPA approved locations to obtain a Medicare provider number. This has a major impact on your career because it influences where you can practice, which jobs you are eligible for, and how you can plan your future in Australia. Now, here's something many GPs don't realize. Not every GP on the PEP pathway has the same location requirements. Everything depends on your comparability outcome after RACGP assesses your qualifications and experience. Broadly speaking, there are two major groups: substantially comparable doctors and partially comparable doctors. So let's look at each of them separately. If you have been assessed as substantially comparable, you have greater flexibility. You can work in practices located anywhere from triple M1 through triple M7. So, yes, working in certain metropolitan locations may be possible for you. However, if you're still subject to the moratorium, the GP practice needs to be located in a DPA approved area so that you can obtain a Medicare provider number. For example, a substantially comparable GP can work in a metro city location if it is classified as DPA. For partially comparable GPs, the rules are more strict. They must complete their PEP specialist training in triple M2 to triple M7 locations. That means triple M1 metropolitan areas are not suitable for completing the program. This is one of the biggest differences between substantially and partially comparable GPs, and it is important to understand these before accepting a job offer. So you might be wondering, why does RACGP require PEP GPs to work in certain triple M locations? The reason is that the PEP specialist pathway is designed to help GPs transition safely into Australian general practice while supporting communities that face GP shortage. So these location requirements, they are purposefully built into the pathway itself. Although many GPs they want to work in major cities, but regional Australia also offers some excellent opportunities. There are often more job vacancies, which make it easier to secure a position. And many regional practices have extensive experience in supervising IMGs and supporting GPs through the PEP pathway. You can also gain broad clinical experience because regional GPs they often manage a wider variety of cases. And depending on the location, you may also benefit from lower cost of living, shorter commutes, and attractive financial incentives because rural practices usually offer better packages to attract more GPs. So, of course, regional practice also comes with some challenges. Some towns they have fewer specialist services, so you will often manage more conditions independently, and clinical responsibility is usually greater, especially in smaller towns. You may be far away from major cities and some lifestyle amenities. That's why it's important not to choose a job based only on the salary package. Look carefully at the practice support, supervisor availability, nearby hospitals, schools, if you are moving with family, and housing options and the overall lifestyle of the location. Choosing the right practice is as important as choosing the right location. Let's quickly summarize everything we have discussed so far. If you are a substantially comparable GP, you can generally work in triple M1 through triple M7 locations. However, you will generally need a DPA approved practice to work as a GP. If you are a partially comparable GP, you are required to work in M2 through M7 locations. So, the most important message is that you should not accept a GP job based only on the salary or the location. Always confirm that the position meets your pathway requirements. If you do this early, you can save significant time and potential delays in your career. So, here's a little bit about our services. Uh, as you know, finding a GP job isn't usually the difficult part, but finding you the right job, it is much more difficult. At PEP GP Australia, we help international GPs identify suitable positions that match their pathway requirements. We also help review the excuse me. We also help review the employment contracts and help you identify the potential red flags and assist you with negotiating employment terms and guide GPs through different stages of the PEP pathway until you begin practicing in Australia. So, our aim is to help you make informed decisions and avoid common mistakes. If you need our help finding the right GP opportunity or have any questions about the PEP pathway, we are more than happy to assist you. You can reach us by email or send us a message on WhatsApp using our contact details here. Thank you for watching, and I wish you all the best on your PEP pathway journey. I'll see you in the next video.